Welcome back to Post-Traumatic Thriving. I am Dr.RandallBell. I am joined by Tanya Brown.
Hi.
Hi.
God, this is great.
Yeah. This is just an enthralling episode. Yeah. In episode 1, if you didn't listen to it, Ken Druck is a big deal. Yeah. We're getting to, why we can back that statement up, I think, but trust me, he's a big deal.
Yeah.
And
a message that everybody really needs to hear right now.
Listen to episode 1. And I know a lot of people go to the TikToks and get the snippets. That's great. Do that too. But listen to it because it's just a profound story. To recap it, basically, Ken was born in New York and grew up in New York in a Jewish family. He recognized at the age of 2 that there was a kind of a heavy pressure from the Holocaust and the direct effects that had on Ken's family. And then grew up on one hand being great in sports, on the other hand struggling with learning disabilities. I guess they're called something else. Differences. And of course interested in music, and both classical and classic rock. I think they're close to the same thing. They're both epic. And then of course girls. Went to college, met a girl, got married. Speaking of girls, had 2 beautiful girls. And then listened to the episode, but out of nowhere, his superstar daughter Jenna was on a trip to India, and out of the blue, Ken got a call at 10:30 at night saying Jenna's gone. Her bus had tipped over, and 3 beautiful young ladies lost their lives. Yeah. Every parent's worst nightmare, period. So, Ken, welcome back.
Good to be with you.
Yeah. And thanks for sharing that really powerful story. That's something that a lot of people cannot even talk about, more or less process. And that's why we're here, is to model what that recovery process looks like. The thought that came through my mind, Ken, is you never get over it, but you get through it. And you're going to share some things now in the survive stage of things that you learned with the benefit of you also being a clinical psychologist to get through it. And you mentioned, I know about your 6 honorings, and I think that would be a great way to work through those 6 things. It will help all of us, and including, of course, our audience, who we care a great deal about. So, Ken, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. I just want to start by saying that the path of honor, we face into what's happened to me, what's happening to me. What do I have any future? Is there anything ahead besides this pain? This is not something. I'm not having a bad summer. Right. This is for the rest of my life. This is my heart and soul that's been affected. So this is a deep, deep dive, and we need to keep our hands on our hearts and our foot off of our own throats. Too often we discover I've got my foot on my throat. I'm rushing myself. I'm shaming myself. I'm living in fear that I'm such a downer. I'm such a loser, grieving person. I'm pathetic. Nobody's going to want to be with me. So I've not only lost my beloved husband, wife, daughter, son, mother, father, I've lost the world. I've lost my own life. I've lost the joy that I had signed up for, the adventure, the sense of purpose and meaning, and the structure of my life. It's all gone. So as we look at that, how do we make a decision that even though I don't know how this is all going to turn out, I'm going to walk a path of honor. I'm going to honor my daughter in the way that I go on. I'm going to do the best I can for as long as it takes, maybe for every day for the rest of my life. And so not only what I've learned on my own path after the death of my daughter, but what I've learned from literally thousands of people that I've had the honor and privilege of working with. What they've taught me is what I call the 6 honorings. And the first one starts with survival. Your surviving is honoring. It's honoring them. It's that you may be, and I said earlier, it's the equivalent to being in the ICU with tubes sustaining life for you. That's the equivalent of a traumatic loss, of a significant traumatic loss. So how do I survive? And it requires a new level of self-care. I call it prograde self-care. I teach it and train people in all kinds of stress, very stressful professions. I train them in what I call prograde, professional grade self-care. It's not go out and have a mani and a pedi.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not go eat more chocolate. It's really the deep dive into how do I keep my hand on my heart? How do I express kindness to myself, encouragement and support? How do I talk to myself through a day? How do I set healthy boundaries and limits? Because there are people that are grief groupies. They want to come around and they deplete my energy. Or people who come by and want to give me unsolicited advice and tell me how I should be going about things now. How do I protect myself from those people? How do I surround myself with people who will just be with me and support me and sign up for the long run, or say, hey, here's some things I'd love to do. Can I bring dinner over? Can we go for a walk on the beach? Can we have a coffee? People who are around for the long run. How do I develop that self-care protocol that people who've gone through this adopted, that help get them through it? And we're all different, of course. But doing that work, that's the first honoring. It's figuring out how to survive through self-care and self-compassion. The second honoring is to do something good in their name. It could be that you light a candle. It could be that you blow them a kiss every night. You tell them you love them. It could be that you celebrate their birthday with their favorite cupcake. It could be something so simple. It could even be the way you silently are with them. You remember them. It could be something else. It could be that the way they died, you becomes a devotion for you, that you want to prevent one other person or one other family from having to go through the horror and the pain of going through. And so you get on the side of, you join a group that's walking to raise money for ALS research, or that deals with violent loss, or with gun safety, gun violence, and so on. And so domestic violence, whatever it is, you do something good in their name. You give something of yourself to the world as a way of honoring them in celebration of who they are, how they may have died, or how they lived. It might be that they loved music and you support. One of the things I've done is I love symphony. The way I honor my mother and my daughter who love music is I help support the San Diego Symphony. I want that music to be resounding in the life of my grandchildren. I want it to prevail. And with so many demands and with the world in financial crisis, I want to help make that happen. Third honoring, cultivate a spiritual relationship with them. No, my phone is not going to ring. My daughter's not going to be visiting. I'm never going to see and be with my daughter. But there is a realm in which the love never dies and the love gets exchanged. I tell my daughter I love her. Yes, I talk to the dead. I tell her I love her every day. And I allow myself to feel her love. Sometimes I feel like her hand is on my cheek saying, Daddy, You've got to throw that shirt out. You can never wear that shirt again. I hate that shirt. So whatever ways we feel love, we receive love and give love, we cultivate a relationship with them. And it's the love that never dies. You know, my mom, when my mom passed a couple of years ago, I used to call my mom every morning. She died at 92. But I call her and I'd say, hey, how's my favorite mother? That's the way I always began the conversation. How's my favorite mom? And she would laugh and we'd chuckle and then we'd go to lunch or something. I still get in the car some days on my way to somewhere. And I don't pick up a phone or I don't do anything, but I say, hey, how's my favorite mother? I say it. I proclaim my love to the universe. I don't know the true nature of life and death. We're speeding through space on something that's less than a grain of sand. I don't know the true nature. And then we found out that it's not one universe. We live in all of these universes. It's infinite. How can it's so far beyond me to understand what death is, what this life is, what it all transitions and passes into. We live in this great, vast mystery. So humility is such an important part of this. Mm-hmm. So cultivating that spiritual relationship is critical. Next thing is take the high road. When we are grieving in the rawness of grief and loss, we want to bite somebody's nose off. Mm-hmm. You cut me off, or this happens, or that happens. We are in the rawness of grief. After 9/11, we started a program called Take the High Road because the average age of the person who died was 38. They had kids, they had a wife, they had aging parents. But who was getting the call from the government? We found some DNA, would think it's your husband. The wife was. And the parents, some of the parents were saying, what the hell? Why didn't you call me? Why didn't you call me? Who the hell are you? Well, who are you? Who are you? Suddenly it's like, you're never going to see your grandkids again. In the rawness of grief, we say and do things that hurt the people we love. So we developed a ethic that you treat the people around you in the spirit of how much you loved the person you lost. Take the high road. Don't bite people's noses off. Apologize. Mm-hmm. Be humble. Realize they're grieving in their own way. Don't make it a contest. Who's grieving more? Who loved them more? Who was loved more? So that's one of the other honorings. The next honoring takes some of the greatest courage of all, because it's about writing new chapters of life. One of the most courageous things in the world is to go on living. It's like, how dare I go on living? We live with survivor's guilt. We live with, gee, look at me. What's for dinner tonight? I think I'll have my daughter's dead, but I think I'll go have a delicious dinner. We think we're despicable. How dare we have joy? We relegate ourselves to joylessness. We think we can't do anything when the very thing that would give them, it's like, thank God my death didn't end your life. Thank God I'm seeing my father listening to music again. Thank God I'm seeing my dad with what would be my nephews, loving on my sister's sons. You know, thank God my dad has fought his way back into life. Do I see him walking with a limp in his heart? Yes. Do I see him cry when he's walking in the mall behind a girl that has my hair, the same hair as me, and tears are streaming down my father's face? Do I know that he will have sorrow for the rest of his life? Do I know, looking into his eyes, that I will see his brokenness, his broken heart? But my father, his heart is broken open, not closed. Mm-hmm. Hearts break in this life. There's nobody gets to go through this life without a broken heart. Mm-hmm. The question is, do they break open or closed? an open heart, is capable of continuing to love, dares to take the risk of loving, of connecting, of attaching ourselves to other people in healthy ways. It opens to the greater possibilities of ourselves as individuals, our best possible futures. It doesn't shut down. It doesn't close off. It doesn't live under the illusion that it can protect itself by becoming smaller and contracting around the pain. It frees, it cries out, it wails with the pain. It gives the pain constructive expression in the world. It does something good. It transfers the pain that we have back into love. And that love gets shared with the world in whatever expression or form. We could write a great symphony. We could comfort somebody who's hurting with a compassionate and generous heart. We could hold somebody's hand. We could feed people who find themselves, their homeland decimated, don't have a warm meal to eat or a home to live in. We can reach out to those people who suffer. So those are the honorings, and there are more. And every time I talk with somebody and they share something, it's like, my God, that's another way. So don't limit yourself to these honorings. There are other ways that you will discover that you can honor, embracing a cause that's a special cause. But I think at the core of it all, and where it all starts, is you putting your hand on your own heart with permission to cry, to wail, to not rush, to treat yourself and speak to yourself with kindness and patience and encouragement and newfound understanding and newfound courage to go on and to live out the rest of your life in a way that honors the person or the people or the loss you have suffered. Those are the 6 honorings, and it's a template. And for, when people say, how do I go on? And by the way, you don't have to limit it to a loss suffered by death.
Right.
What about the people in the world that are in the first steps of a painful divorce? Somebody they loved, somebody they had children with or shared a life with, built their dreams with. Now there's only hostility and anger and an adversarial divorce and a splintering. How many families are splintered where people are estranged and they no longer want to have to do, they're living in grudges and resentment and suffering the pain of having loved a loving family that's been decimated. How many people have gotten a bad diagnosis today? These are all living losses. Nobody's died. They're living losses. So the compassion that we have can be shared with people who've suffered life losses, but also with people who've suffered living losses. Look around the world and you see, you think about, what can I do? What can I do? Where can I help with what I have? Rather than obsessing about what I've lost, who else is in their moment of suffering that I could help right now? And the world is in greater need than I've ever known it in my lifetime. And the world is also, the future is in greater need, because the world in which my grandsons will grow up and try to thrive depends on what I do. Am I going to leave a legacy of chaos and having done nothing, or become indifferent or dull to what's happening in the world? Or am I going to use my voice and what I've learned and all the resources and assets that I have to make the world a better place for them, so that they might enjoy some of the same gifts and blessings and miracles that I've had in my lifetime?
Wow.
Just wow.
I think we could end right now.
I think we should just shut up.
I know. Okay, Ken, this is your show.
Please don't shut up.
No, this was, amazing, beautiful. And, just everything in hindsight right now, with looking back when Nicole was killed, I saw a lot of that experience, like a lot of our family dynamics in what you were sharing right now. Our hearts didn't close. They broke open. So, which was good, and we, my message to anybody out there who's hurting, who's, whether it's a living loss or if it's, an actual death, honor that person. We easily, as a family, could have said, okay, bury Nicole and then boom, then have it be done. But then letters started coming in from all around the world. You have to talk about domestic violence. This is nothing new. We didn't know. My parents never fought. We didn't know what this thing was. And so it was because of people like you who say, hey, choose to break, choose your heart to break open and not close, to all the Kens out there. I'm grateful because we would have just buried Nicole and have her just, die in vain.
Well, when you said, Ken, would you come do this podcast with me? There wasn't a question in my mind that this is one of my heroes. This is somebody I have watched, and we talk about the post-traumatic thriving.
Mm-hmm.
Thriving, when we think about thriving, we often think about, thriving, that means you're rolling in money and you're
a Bentley and
right.
Rolex.
You've got
Yeah.
but thriving in the elegant way that you guys have defined it and are embodying it in this show. Thriving is that moment of reverence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a tearful moment because it has joy in it and celebration of life, and has the deepest sorrow. It's all that chemistry. That's what all those elements can be in thriving. They're all a part of it. And we think, oh, well, you're not thriving until you get over this.
Yeah.
Get over it already. Come on. You can't, aren't you ready to party with us?
Mm-hmm.
Come on, we're all going to Vegas. Come on, we're all, aren't you ready? What's wrong with you? The greatest enemy of thriving and of healing is shame.
Mm-hmm.
I will have people come in to see me and they'll start crying when they start telling their story about the world having fallen apart and life having ended for them. And they apologize. They say, I'm so sorry. And I say, your apology is not accepted. You have honored me. You've entrusted to me a sacred truth and story. Your apology isn't accepted. There's no room for your apology. There's no room for shame. There's no room for self-criticism in the way we talk to ourselves. What's wrong with me? I can't do this. I don't want to do that. I'm such a downer now. We beat the crap out of ourselves because we feel so compromised, and we compare ourselves to the older version of, I was the party guy. Come on, I was the guy who got us all organized. Now people invite me out and it's like, are you kidding? At the beginning, after Jenna died, I would tell people, everybody wanted to fix me and put me back together. And it was like, you know what? Thank you. I can come over for 15 minutes. That's my social limit. That's what I can handle. And I wouldn't tell them, if I'm still doing okay after 15 minutes, I'll stay for a little longer. But I had to take care of myself. Nobody was going to come in and say, oh, Ken, you don't need to do that. You may all of your life have been the type E, everything to everybody else. But you know what? That course has run out right now. You need people to be giving to you and supporting you. And some of us, I discovered, including me, our receivers are broken. The part of us that says, thank you. That's so kind of you. Yes. I'd love for you to bring dinner over. That would be such a relief to me. I was wondering what I was going to do, or I'd love to take a quiet walk with you. in nature. Or yes, I think that would be a perfect, if it would be okay that I could stay for a little while. I'd love to go to that concert, that symphony with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hear Mahler, who was grieving when he wrote it. So, we sometimes can't receive it. It's like, no, I don't want to accrue any debts here. We have these defenses against receiving. Our receivers are broken at a time where we need to be able to open our hearts and say, you know what, if ever in my life I needed somebody else's hand on my heart right now, or kindness or patience, or somebody who could really genuinely be a friend, not somebody who's coming in with advice and they've got a spiritual answer or a shrink answer or any kind of answer. I'm not in the market for answers. Do I want guidance? Yes. Do I want to know what worked for you? Yes. Do I want a place to tell my story safely without somebody throwing Band-Aids at me? Yes, that's exactly what I need. So we have to make sure our receiver isn't broken or shut off. And for some of us, that's rewiring. We got to push the reset button and go, okay, I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to limit it to as much as I can receive for right now. I'll start slow. I'll start gently. Yeah. But it's that hand on our heart that defines what thriving is. We're thriving if we are surviving. And then the things that grow organically from having taken care of business, by taking care of our own heart, our own brokenness, the things that grow organically are some of the great miracles, it's what history is made of. When we think about the stories that are told in faith, the stories that are told in history of cultures, they're stories of survival and people rising up out of the ashes, and creating another way of living, summoning that courage that they didn't know existed, that they couldn't find in the beginning, that newfound courage. We all think about parts of our lives. It's like, yeah, when I got married, I had to get some new courage to say, baby, would you marry me? She could have said, no, get lost. That first job we took, that first $1 million or $1 billion job. It's like, oh my God, am I taking that on? You writing your books, with our kids, becoming a parent, if we've done that, daring to get good at, and knowing that becoming a parent is one of the most complicated and difficult things a human being can do. So we've all learned how to summon newfound courage at different points in our lives. And that's what we're being asked to do. But the way we do it is not with our hand on our throat or our foot on our throat, with self-criticism. What's the matter with you? Hurry up, get up. Look at you. You're terrible. You're pathetic. You're not anything like you used to be. You're a shell of your, with all that harsh criticism, that just beats us down. It's a beat down. Mm-hmm. What we need is a rise up. We need encouragement and patience and kindness. So, keeping my hand on my heart and learning how to do that and catch myself. It's like, what did you just say to yourself? Did you really just say that to you? You think that's helpful? Mm-hmm. How about something kind and understanding? And tough love's great. Give yourself tough love, but do it in a caring tone, not with a punitive, admonishing, with a finger waving in your face. Some of us treat ourselves like we're in a courtroom all the time, except there's only a prosecutor waving that finger in your face, accruing evidence that look at you, you're all screwed up. Look at you, this is taking so long. Look what's wrong with you. How come he's not grieving that way? She's not grieving that way. What's wrong with you? It's like we're in a courtroom with no defense attorney to represent us, no judge and no jury, just a prosecutor waving that admonishing finger in our face, producing evidence to prove what? That we're unlovable, we're worthless, we're terrible, we're weak. So we've got to silence that voice and activate the voice of self-compassion. And that's often, when people come to me and they're doing grief work, that's what it's about. Mm-hmm. Silencing, learning to catch yourself in that admonishing, prosecutorial voice, and cultivating and learning to speak to ourselves in that voice of compassion and kindness, clarity. And that's where everything good grows. That's where we do miraculous things. At the end of it all, we go back, we say, oh my God, have I been on a hero's journey? How did I turn this thing around? How did I learn to thrive? Because I'm thriving now. How did that happen? Well, it happened because I kept my hand on my heart. And I walked the path of honoring the best I could. Some days I did better than others. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm a work in progress. I'm still doing it. And I will probably do it to my final breath. That's the path forward. That's the path forward.
Self-compassion.
Self-compassion. Mm-hmm. It's the core.
Give ourselves some grace, during the hard times.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's important. Even during the good times, right?
Yeah.
Self-compassion is critical. And you probably know this modality where it's the rubber band method, where you put the rubber band around your wrist.
Yeah.
So I had my clients in the past, you wear a rubber band around your wrist, and the second a negative thought comes in, it's like you whack that thing, right? And it's like Pavlov's dog. You keep doing that, it's behavior modification. You're going to listen real fast. So that's just, a nice little tool for people to catch ourselves, because when you were saying all the ugly stuff, the icky stuff, the prosecutor and all of that, like I was actually like feeling it in my body.
Oh yeah.
And I just, we're hard on ourselves. So, I'm not perfect, right? None of us are. So when I speak to myself that way, I got the same feeling when I heard you speak those words. And I was like, oh my God, this is like sad. This is ugly. And so if you're beating yourself down and beating yourself up, listen to a podcast, listen to Ken, pick up an inspirational book, go, take a walk on the beach.
Yeah. And sometimes the start point is also catching ourselves. If we're doing it to ourselves, guess who else we're doing it to?
Everybody else around us.
It's contagious because we're projecting. Mm-hmm. Often we don't even know we're doing it, but we're doing it. We're projecting a lot of that self-criticism in the form of criticism of other people. We're finding other people to. We become Mr. Judgmental.
Right.
It's like, what are you doing? Or why are they doing that? Or how could they? Oh, that's awful. And we become judgmental. In the beginning, after Jenna died, when I was biting people's noses off, I go into the supermarket for the first time. Have a nice day, sir. And it's like, I'll have a lovely day. My daughter was just killed. Yeah. It'll be a great day, I'm sure. That's biting people's nose. But catching ourselves and expressing a kindness. And I learned how to flip that. If somebody was treating me rude or somebody was saying something that was so superficial, I would ask them, how's your day going? You having a rough day? 9 out of 10 times, the person who was rude or abrupt or insensitive was having a rough day themselves. So flip it. Yeah. It's like, oh, my MO is to criticize somebody, to bite their nose off or play gotcha. Oh, look, another, reaffirm my judgmental self. Oh, there's just another one of them people. But to flip it and say, how's your day going? How's your day going? And to show caring, that's contagious too. Rudeness is contagious, and so is compassion and kindness. And so if we're doing it to ourselves, be aware we're probably doing it to other people too, and become the kinder version of yourself, the more supportive version. And that flips back, because guess what? People do that and say, you know what? Thank you so much for asking me how I was. Yeah. I've been working all day and nobody has asked me that. No, it's like I felt so alone in the world. I felt so alone, So I know we wanted to also, when I say thriving and what grows organically, I have been blessed. I am in the richest time of my life. If you had said to me, Ken, you're going to be in your early 70s and you're going to be in the richest time, but you're never going to have been more creative, more clear, less pressured, more compassionate towards yourself, kinder to other people, or contributing more. If you had said that to me years ago, I would have choked you and thrown you to the ground and said, how dare you tell me about my future? My heart's been ripped out. So I'm not telling people, I'm not sitting here looking into a crystal ball and saying your future is going to be, I'm just telling you from my experience, what I've done and what I've been able to build in my life from my pain, from what I went through, as well as from the joy of my daughter, of both my daughters. And now with grandsons, my God, that special gift that came. I know you're going through that too. But, I'm in some of the richest time of my life. And, I've written 3 books in the last 6-7 years, 2 of them bestsellers. And it's not important in the way it would have been 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. It's just me saying, maybe I can say some things that would make somebody's life easier, somebody's bad day kinder. Maybe I could say some things about that. So that's why I'm doing it. But and you asked before about the new book, and we were talking about that.
Well, I want to get right back to that in the next episode.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about all your books. I mean, in fact, that's a perfect segue into the Thrive stage, because you've been on Oprah, you've been on Donahue, you've written, mega books.
Who's Oprah and Donahue?
I don't know.
I actually would like to share something. So, Ken, you may be familiar with the woman in San Diego. When I was living in Del Mar during college, there was, I think it was like the first case of shaken baby syndrome,
Yes.
where the nanny, so this young gal, I don't know if you remember.
I remember.
You remember
very
her?
well.
So this was a teller at the Wells Fargo that I frequented when I was in college, whenever I had money. And somebody was really, really giving her a hard time, not knowing what she was going through. Her baby had just died from shaken baby syndrome. And so my boyfriend at the time, he was sharing this with me, and we just were mentioning it. We were talking about it the other day. And I said, yeah, Sean, I go, do you remember that gal? And he goes, yeah. And I said, you just never know what somebody is going through. And so Sean went up to the teller and basically put his hand on his heart, said, hey, listen, you were treated so rudely right now. Are you okay? And she goes, no. She goes, my baby just died 2 days ago. And and Sean's baby had died from SIDS. So that was like an immediate connection for the both of them. But always remember, hurt people hurt people. When my mom died, I lashed out at a lot of people. And I made amends. Some were accepted, some weren't. You make amends, not for yourself. You make amends, you just do, so you can move on. But when you were talking about, you never know what somebody is going through, that young gal, she was young. I mean, I was young. I was probably 21. She was probably 30 something. And I'll never forget that. So you just never know when somebody cuts you off in the middle of the freeway, when somebody's flipping you a bird, when somebody's yelling at you. It's projection. Hurt people hurt people. And I liked how beautifully you said, ask how's your day going? Not how are you? Like, fine. You know what that all stands for, right? I've mentioned that before, right? Effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. Yep. But I loved how you just described all of that, because we live in a world of haste, anger, frustration, irritability. People are always rushing to point A to point Z, and they need to get there in a hot second, and it's my way or the highway. And it's like, slow down, and if somebody is rude to you, give that person some compassion. You said it very beautifully.
The alternative is to escalate. And we live in a world of that's the breaking news. Just turn on the TV and watch breaking news.
Right.
That's the world in which things have escalated 99% of the time.
Yeah.
Escalation because, somebody didn't stop, slow down, take the time to express what was going on with them. Find out that we, in most cases we want the same thing. I first book that I wrote years ago, I was so afraid. I got a call from Tennessee to be on a radio show. And I found out, and my publicist said, you're going to be on the show with the person who created the Tea Party. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be California roadkill psychologist. This guy's he doesn't want to interview me. I'm California, he thinks I'm a liberal roadkill, and he's just setting me up for the road. So we're going to get on the phone and whatnot. The interview the next day started with him saying, I read the beginning of your book. I read about the loss of your daughter. I have 3 kids. I don't know if I could survive the death of one of my kids. I followed up on that, and we talked. He was brave to say that. And we talked for an hour. It was one of the best interviews I've ever had. And because we found the common ground, we might have had different ideas about the path to that best possible future. He thought this was the best way to get there. I thought this was the best. But we both had the same goal and wanted the same thing for our kids. And we listened to each other, and we talked, and tears and, and just the love that was flowing for our kids and the connection that we forged was amazing. Even though politically, if that was a political conversation, what would have happened? Well, just turn on your TV. Watch politicians going at each other's throats. There's no understanding of the common ground future that we all want. There's no meeting place. There's just the big pissing contest of you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're a snowflake. No, you're the snowflake. That's all there is, and that's where it ends. Nothing moves forward. It's a lose-lose proposition. So we have to keep looking for those win-win propositions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All I got to say is,
amazing.
Ken, this is one of the most brilliant half hours I've ever spent in my life.
Yes.
I mean that from the heart.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean,
Beautiful.
here I spent 15 years researching and writing this book, Post-Traumatic Thriving, and I think I need to run to the printer and insert these 6 honorings. They are so awesome.
Yeah. That was so captivating. I learned so much.
Sometimes it's best to just sit down, buckle in, and shut up. Because
and that's hard for me. So you captivated me.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait till our next episode.
Yeah.
We're going to get into a lot more of this. The first time, Tanya, you've been sitting next to me for a lot of episodes.
He's never taken notes.
I've never taken notes on what's, one of our guests has said. And I don't mean to, demean any of our guests, because they're brilliant. And I listen to them and I learn a lot. But this is something like, oh my gosh, I've got to do some of this stuff.
I'm going to take a photocopy of that.
Yeah. I mean, I've lost some people in my life. We all have. And, but I'm thinking of my dad, honestly, because I haven't honored him the way I should. And my dad was a great man, he was a quiet giant, not a loud guy, but a powerful guy in his own right. And I need to honor him. And you've just given me a brilliant roadmap.
Beautiful.
So thank you, Ken. Beautiful. Really.
Yeah. That was a huge gift you just gave us and all the viewers and listeners. A huge gift. Yeah.
And if I meant to say so, but I knew this stuff was coming, and I should have told our listeners, go get a notepad because you're going to want to take some notes, but go listen to the episode again.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to come right back with more with Ken and on Post-Traumatic Thriving, where we dive, survive, and thrive.
The choice is yours.
Thanks for supporting our podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on your favorite social media. For books, merchandise, or to donate, visit CoreIQ.com. Post-Traumatic Thriving is produced by CoreIQ, a nonprofit with a mission to teach the life skills we all need but are not taught in school. Core IQ and the Post-Traumatic Thriving podcast are for informational purposes only and do not provide medical or mental health advice. Always consult with your licensed medical and mental health care providers.